Ladies and gentlemen, when we think of brilliance, innovation, and relentless drive, the image that often comes to mind is one of a mind that seems almost superhuman, a mind that can bend the boundaries of what we consider possible. We admire it, we study it, and sometimes we even envy it. But what we rarely see, what the world so often overlooks, is the soft side, the deeply human side that struggles, feels, and seeks connection even as it reaches for the stars. Tonight, I want to explore that side, the side that reveals not weakness, but profound strength. Consider the way human emotions are intertwined with creativity. Neuroscience tells us that our capacity for empathy, for deep emotional resonance, is not a peripheral trait. It is a fundamental driver of innovation. When someone creates a product, a solution, or even a vision for the future, it is not born solely out of logic. It is born out of the subtle dance between emotion and intellect, between desire and discipline. Every great leap in science or technology has been accompanied by deep vulnerability, by moments of doubt that demanded courage just to confront. Let me take you back to a time when the stakes were unimaginable. Imagine being responsible for projects that could reshape entire industries, when every decision could ripple across the world in ways few people understand. There is a constant tension between the rational mind and the emotional core. On the surface, it might look like sheer calculation, like cold engineering, but beneath that, there is empathy for the lives touched, for the environment, for the future we are shaping. The late nights, the relentless schedules, the obsessive problem solving, these are all manifestations of a mind that cares, perhaps too much, about outcomes. But what drives that care? It is not just ambition, it is an underlying desire to leave the world slightly better than it was found, to solve problems that matter deeply on a human level. I have spoken to teams who describe this intensity as almost frightening, as if the emotional stakes are higher than the technical ones. And in a way they are, because a mind that dares to imagine colonizing Mars, or revolutionizing transportation, or advancing artificial intelligence, does so not from detachment, but from a profound sensitivity to the state of humanity. There is a paradox here. The more we seem untouchable in our accomplishments, the more fragile we may feel when we confront our own limitations. And it is precisely that fragility that is often mistaken for coldness or detachment. Scientific research in neuroscience shows us that vulnerability and emotional openness are critical for high-level problem solving. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for complex planning, is intimately connected with the limbic system, which governs emotion and empathy. Creativity is born in the interplay between these regions. When the mind faces uncertainty, when it confronts failure, the emotional response is not a hindrance. It is a signal, a compass that points toward deeper insights. And yet, in our culture, we have conditioned ourselves to hide this side, to equate softness with weakness. But consider real-life examples. One of the most challenging aspects of leading teams is understanding that human emotion cannot be engineered away. No amount of optimization, no algorithm, no efficiency model can replace genuine understanding of the human experience. Leaders who ignore this find themselves isolated, disconnected, and ultimately less effective. By contrast, when we allow ourselves to connect emotionally, to recognize our own fears and the fears of those around us, the impact multiplies, ideas flourish, resilience strengthens, and trust, the invisible fuel of any high-performing team, emerges naturally. I recall a project where the technical hurdles seemed insurmountable. The failure of a prototype felt like a personal failure. In those moments, I realized something critical: progress is inseparable from emotion. Frustration, hope, fear, and joy are not distractions, they are the feedback loops that drive problem-solving forward. A mind that refuses to engage emotionally will eventually hit a wall, because true innovation is never purely rational. It requires daring, risk, and a willingness to feel the weight of potential consequences deeply. Emotion also shapes moral and ethical dimensions of innovation. When we talk about technologies that could alter society, autonomous vehicles, space travel, artificial intelligence, it is not enough to calculate efficiency or profit. we must ask, how will this affect human life? How will it touch the vulnerable, the overlooked, the next generation? These are not just business questions, they are fundamentally emotional questions. And it is the soft side, the human side, that grapples with these dilemmas, often quietly, behind the scenes, as decisions are made at the speed of thought. There is also the paradoxical intersection of love and solitude. Some of the most intellectually intense minds spend hours, even days, in isolation. They are driven by curiosity, by obsession with discovery. Yet, despite appearances, isolation does not negate the need for connection. Every breakthrough carries an invisible echo of relational insight. A conversation with a mentor, a shared frustration with a colleague, a quiet moment of recognition that the world is bigger than the individual. Neuroscience shows that humans are wired for social engagement. Our brains literally grow in richness and adaptability when stimulated by connection. So even in solitude, the mind reaches for the human heart. Perhaps one of the most misunderstood aspects of such a life is the tension between public perception and inner reality. The world sees results, achievements, and milestones, but rarely sees the internal dialogue, the constant balancing act of ambition and care, of rigor and tenderness. There is a soft side that worries about making mistakes that could harm others, that feels guilt and responsibility deeply. And yet, we often mask it with humor, with charisma, or with relentless work ethic. It is not weakness, it is resilience in disguise. Think also of the role of childhood experiences in shaping emotional depth. Neuroscience has demonstrated that early exposure to challenge and adversity, when coupled with support and guidance, can cultivate a unique capacity for empathy and creativity. Some of the most transformative innovators have carried early struggles into adult life, converting emotional intensity into a fuel for learning, for taking risks, for imagining the unimaginable. Emotional memory, far from being a liability, becomes a guide for strategic and ethical decision-making. And let us not forget the subtle, quiet joys, the moments that remind us we are human. The curiosity of a child, the awe at a starry sky, the thrill of witnessing the first successful launch, or the first breakthrough in a complex problem. These moments are often invisible to the outside world, yet they are powerful anchors, reminders that emotion is the invisible scaffolding of innovation. They remind us that even in the pursuit of extraordinary goals, the heart must be engaged, not ignored. Now, the scientific evidence supporting emotional engagement in high performance is compelling. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, plays a surprising role in team dynamics. It is released not only through social connection, but also through acts of shared risk, collaboration, and trust building. When a team tackles a seemingly impossible problem, the emotional resonance among its members can literally change the neurochemistry of the brain, enhancing cooperation, focus, and creativity. This is why empathy, far from being a soft skill, is a core driver of results at the highest levels. The soft side also manifests in reflection and ethical foresight. Consider the weight of choices that could affect millions of lives, from energy sustainability to AI governance. Rational models can suggest efficiency, but only a sensitive, emotionally attuned mind can fully grasp the human stakes, the fears, the hopes, the unintended consequences. The interplay of emotional insight and logical analysis is what allows bold but responsible innovation to emerge. It is the recognition that every decision is not just a technical problem, but a human story, and in personal life, the same principles apply. Connection, vulnerability, and the willingness to be deeply seen are not distractions from purpose. They are integral to it. A mind that has explored the edges of science and industry can still be profoundly moved by acts of kindness, by the courage of another person, by love in its many forms. These experiences are not irrelevant to achievement. They are the source of resilience, the fuel for long-term creativity, and the grounding force that prevents burnout. If we examine the patterns of the most impactful innovators, we see a recurring theme in intense internal life, characterized by curiosity, empathy, and emotional honesty. Their brilliance is inseparable from their sensitivity. They feel deeply, fail publicly, and still continue to dream audaciously. What the world often labels as eccentricity, obsession, or detachment is in fact a manifestation of an intricate emotional and cognitive architecture, a mind capable of immense achievement precisely because it does not shy away from feeling. And so I ask you to reconsider what strength looks like. Strength is not the absence of feeling. It is the courage to feel deeply, to embrace vulnerability, and to allow that emotional intelligence to inform action. Strength is the ability to care, even when the stakes are high and the world is watching. Strength is the willingness to imagine solutions that honor both logic and humanity. Tonight, as we explore the boundaries of possibility, as we consider the next frontier of science, technology, and human potential, let us not forget the soft side, the tender, emotional, and profoundly human side that drives every innovation, every leap forward, and every vision of a better world. It is a reminder that intelligence without empathy is incomplete, that vision without heart is limited, and that true greatness is measured not only by what is achieved, but by how deeply one feels while achieving it. And perhaps in embracing this soft side, in allowing ourselves to acknowledge our own vulnerabilities and our own capacity for care, we unlock the truest form of progress, the kind that transforms lives, uplifts humanity, and inspires generations to come. Because ultimately, the world does not only need the innovators, the engineers, or the thinkers. It needs the humans who dare to feel, who dare to care, and who dare to create a future that reflects not only what is possible, but what is good, compassionate, and profoundly human. Thank you, and let us consider the notion of resilience. Resilience is often misunderstood as mere toughness, the ability to withstand pressure without faltering. But true resilience, the kind that fuels extraordinary achievement, is deeply intertwined with emotional awareness. It is the capacity to confront fear, disappointment, and uncertainty, not by suppressing them, but by acknowledging them fully. Neuroscience shows us that emotional regulation, when combined with deliberate reflection, strengthens neural pathways that govern decision-making, creativity, and long-term planning. In other words, every time we face failure, every time we feel the sting of setback, we are actually building the architecture of genius, if we are willing to feel it, to process it, and to learn from it. Think of the countless prototypes that failed, the projects that seemed doomed from the start, and the personal sacrifices that accompanied them. To the outside observer, these may appear as signs of obsession, perhaps even recklessness. But to the one living through it, each challenge is a profound lesson in patience, empathy, and emotional endurance. There is a subtle beauty in that process, a beauty that is rarely captured in headlines, yet it is central to every remarkable breakthrough. Each moment of doubt carries the seed of insight. Each emotional struggle reinforces the capacity to imagine solutions that others cannot even conceive. And then there is the paradox of visibility. The world celebrates success, but it rarely acknowledges the inner life, the moments of quiet reflection, the solitude that allows for insight, the fear of failure that must be confronted in silence. For those who walk the edge of possibility, public recognition is often secondary to the internal compass that guides every decision. The soft side is revealed not in accolades or press coverage, but in the private moments when one questions, am I doing right by the world? Am I considering the human cost of my choices? Am I acting with integrity? These questions, though unseen, shape every action and every innovation. Empathy, too, plays a critical role in this journey. It is often said that empathy is a soft skill, something that can be taught or encouraged. But neuroscience reveals a far more profound truth. Empathy is a cognitive emotional bridge. It allows us to anticipate consequences, to foresee challenges, and to craft solutions that are not only effective but meaningful. Consider complex systems like global transportation networks, sustainable energy, or artificial intelligence. Technical expertise can guide design, but without empathy, the solutions are hollow. They may function, they may even succeed commercially, but they will fail to resonate with the very people they are meant to serve. I remember visiting a factory floor late one night, observing teams working tirelessly on a new prototype. The room was filled with the hum of machinery, the quiet concentration of individuals who were deeply committed to their work. Yet beneath the surface, there was care. Care for the product, care for the team, care for the impact this technology might have on the lives of others. That care is invisible to the casual observer, but it is the lifeblood of true innovation. It is the soft side in action, guiding hands, minds, and hearts towards solutions that matter. Even in moments of personal challenge, the soft side manifests in ways that are profoundly human. Loneliness, doubt, fear of failure, these are universal experiences, even for those who seem invincible. The willingness to confront these feelings, to embrace vulnerability rather than avoid it, is what differentiates a superficial achiever from a transformative visionary. Psychologists describe this as emotional granularity, the ability to perceive and articulate subtle shades of emotion. High emotional granularity correlates with greater cognitive flexibility, better stress management, and more adaptive decision-making. In essence, feeling deeply is not a liability, it is a superpower. And love, let us not overlook its transformative power. Love in all its forms, romantic, familial, platonic, and even the love for humanity, shapes motivation, resilience, and moral imagination. Neuroscience shows that attachment and connection activate reward centers in the brain, enhancing creativity and problem solving. The very acts of caring, nurturing, and connecting amplify our capacity to innovate, to persevere, and to lead with integrity. To those who focus solely on the external markers of success, this may seem trivial. But to those who understand the mind, the heart is inseparable from intellect, just as emotion is inseparable from progress. Consider the immense pressures of leading cutting-edge initiatives while balancing personal relationships. The soft side reveals itself in the effort to maintain connection despite overwhelming demands, to find moments of presence in a life defined by relentless forward motion. It is in the quiet conversations, the small gestures, the moments of listening without agenda, that the depth of character is forged. And it is precisely this depth that informs ethical judgment, guides vision, and ensures that ambition does not become blind or self-serving. Scientific studies also reinforce the value of reflective practice, mindfulness, journaling, deliberate pauses for contemplation. These are not luxuries but essential mechanisms for integrating emotional experience with cognitive processing. They allow the mind to synthesize complex information, to anticipate outcomes, and to envision possibilities beyond the immediate horizon. A mind that moves too quickly, that ignores the emotional currents beneath the surface, risks short-sightedness. A mind that feels deeply, that reflects intentionally, cultivates foresight and wisdom. And so, as we imagine the future, our cities, our technologies, our exploration of space, we must not separate the soft side from the visionary side. They are two halves of a whole. Technical brilliance without empathy risks cold efficiency. Empathy without vision risks stagnation. But together, they create a force capable of transforming the world. Every bold venture, every leap into the unknown, carries within it the fingerprints of emotion, the empathy for those it touches, the curiosity that drives inquiry, the courage to persist through doubt, and the love that fuels purpose. Finally, let us remember that the world's greatest challenges, climate change, global inequality, technological ethics, cannot be solved by intellect alone. They demand hearts capable of feeling, of caring, of embracing responsibility. They demand visionaries who understand that the impact of their work is measured not only in metrics and milestones, but in the human lives it touches. The soft side, the emotional core, the empathy, the vulnerability, is the secret engine behind every act of lasting innovation. It is time we shift our perspective. It is time we recognize that the qualities we often dismiss as soft are, in fact, the most critical drivers of progress. Sensitivity, compassion, emotional awareness, they are not contradictions to brilliance, they are the foundation of it. They allow us to dream bigger, to reach further, and to create solutions that are not only possible but profoundly meaningful. So as you leave tonight, I urge you to embrace your own soft side, to feel deeply, to care courageously, and to recognize that every emotion, every moment of vulnerability is a source of strength. The world may not always see it, and it may not always celebrate it, but it is the quiet force that shapes the future, that powers human progress, and that reminds us that behind every achievement, every breakthrough, every leap into the unknown, is a heart that dared to care.